Communication is arguably the most important skill that you can have in business, yet so many people are just not good at it. Most people, they're not confident speakers and actually try to avoid speaking in public despite the numerous benefits being a good speaker can provide. Our guest today is Terry Beard. He's the author of We Owe Each Other 2 Minutes, How to Transform Your Life Through Public Speaking. He's also the co-founder with Dr. Caitlin Leonard of FYV Communications. That stands for Find Your Voice, a company that helps businesses improve the speaking abilities of their employees. If you've always wanted to improve your ability to speak publicly, stay tuned. Terry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Rob.
So I read your book, great story, and a topic that I think flies under the radar despite it being so important. And I'm excited to dive in. I'm looking forward to getting into this topic, but I was hoping maybe at first if you could share the story of how you got involved in the speaking industry and now are a known expert in the field.
Thank you for that. When I was turning 50, I recognized that I had 2 sons and that I had not found my voice. And anytime I was asked to public speak, I would run to the back of the room or hide in the john, find any excuse to not be called on. And I thought, if I want my sons not to live this same disease, this plague of speech anxiety, also known as glossophobia, I think it starts with me. And going to a bookstore here that's world famous, it's called Powell's, powells.com. I stumbled onto a book by Brenda Ueland, and I started reading this book. It was an autobiography. And she said, well, whatever you want for your children, you do for yourself. So at that point, I was seeking help, and I found a therapist, a very knowledgeable man. And we spent a lot of time together. And we got to a point, he said, I think you need to go to Dale Carnegie speaking seminars. So I did that as I was turning 50. And I thought, well, I really enjoy this, but I don't know where I'm going to go with this. But I had a company at that point in time with 400 employees. And every time I wanted to get up and say something, I wasn't ready. So I'd pass off my duties and responsibilities. I'd abdicate, basically, or relegate my responsibilities to somebody else. So I was never really ever to carry out the mission because I didn't have the words, I didn't have the writing skills, and didn't have the speaking skills. So after I went to Dale Carnegie, I said, I've got to figure this out because if I want my 2 sons to be able to speak, then I need to go to work on me. I was convinced that was good advice. So 4 years later, I found a Toastmaster club here in Portland, Oregon, and they had a Toastmaster club that didn't follow the rule books, and I could hardly get to the podium. And these people were encouraging, and they were supportive, and they really helped me out. They helped me to the point of helping me find my voice, that I was asked to be a keynote speaker at different functions in a black tie, and I go, well, this is really, really good. So I was reading my speeches, which are called read-alongs today. And finally, about the time that Obama was becoming president in election year, Gordon Hoffman, a fellow Toastmaster, was a great speaker, an engineer, and he'd get up and tell us awesome stories that had messages. And I really admired him. And I saw Obama and I thought he's a great speaker too. So I got up and I had my speech prepared. I got up right in front of about 30 some people and I just tore up my notes. And I said, if our Gordon Hoffman can do it, if Barack Obama can do it, I can do it too. So that was really 8 years later was my takeoff day. But I think getting back at about 53, 54, 55 is when I really started to find my voice. But as a second grader in a local school here, I went to this school that was 1 through 8. And in the second grade, I was already selected to be the MC at the school. And I really enjoyed myself. And I all dressed up with a little blazer and a little bow tie. And I got up there and had the microphone. And I really felt good about what I was doing. I said, God, Elvis Presley gets up to the microphone. I guess I can do this too. So after several weeks, several months, finally, the Mother Superior came up to me, the principal of the school, and she said, Terry, we're going to have to ask you to sit down. You're doing a good job, but your deportment on the school grounds doesn't comport with what we would like as a leader in the schoolhouse. I was benched. So I spent basically the next 40 years on the sidelines with this feeling of not being good enough. Barely made it through grade school, barely made it through high school, and got drafted during the Vietnam War because I knew that was coming, because I went to another school because they had to take me. It was a junior college. And I had my social security number. I had a diploma, even though I was 467th out of 505 in my high school standings. I got up to speak, and I knew that if I didn't get through this speech, I would flunk speech, and I would be basically not a student any longer. I got up and the words wouldn't come, and the professor at the junior college said, in all my years of teaching, that's the worst speech I've ever heard. Said that to me in front of everybody else.
Wow.
I'm nearly in tears. I walk over to the bursar's office and I told the lady, I said, I'm going to check out of school today, and if I can get some money back on my tuition. She said, well, you missed the cutoff by one day. So I'm off to the paper mill. I've got to make a living. I'm a street kid, and I'm going, okay, here comes the draft papers. So I went in the Army, and I got out, went to Portland State University. I'm in school, and one of the professors said to me, I don't know why you're in school. I don't know that you got the material. I think you ought to go back and work at the paper mill. So I said, well, this school isn't going to work for me. So I had a friend who was going to the University of San Francisco. He said, come on down here. Veterans get priority. You'll be on probation, but if you make it, you'll be on your way. And I went down there and graduated near the top of my class. So I found out that I'm good enough, but I still hadn't found public speaking because I didn't have to take speech. It was not a requirement at the University of San Francisco. So I launched a company, and I always found myself hiding behind the counter, really efficient, organized, got along with people, because one-on-one as a sales guy and selling newspapers door to door at 8 and 10 years old, I knew how to do that. But that wasn't a group. That was just one-on-one. And so then I started on my journey with the Dale Carnegie sales training. I'm over in Paris, France. I went to a Rotary Club meeting because I'm a proud Rotarian. And the president me demanded, Monsieur Beard, would you speak today? And I thought, do I do it in English or do I do it in French? Because I've got a lot of tourist words, but I don't know if I'm able to hook them together to give a 10 or 15-minute speech. Somehow I stumbled through it. Boy, it was in a blue suit and purple tie and French cufflinks. I started yakking away, and I must have used the same words over and over, but everybody applauded me. And then they asked me all kinds of questions. They go, wow, this is pretty cool. But I looked down at my plate. It was like a piscine, swimming pool, all full of sweat. I said, this tells me I'm going to go to the next step. I'm going to go find a place where I can find my voice and learn to become a public speaker. So story rolls on. And the more that I have found my voice, the better speaker I become, the more self-confident I become, the more patient I am with myself because of self-esteem and self-confidence. And this is what's missing. This is philosophical. This is what's missing in our society. If 70 to 80% of us can't speak, so we're always deflecting, a little on the defensive that we don't get called. But the better we feel about ourselves, the easier it is to connect with other people. Now, wouldn't that be a nice gift if we could flip these numbers around and have more people on their feet to speak? May not agree with what they say, but they're feeling good about themselves and they bring us in and they're not talking at us. And I'm finding this journey an incredible journey. I'm meeting all kinds of wonderful people in the process of this. And my two sons have found their voices. And my younger, I have two, 148 and 136. The 36-year-old, I think I shared this with you already, graduated at the top of his class at Berkeley, is a school teacher. He said, Dad, I love teaching kids. Half of the kids don't have fathers, so I get to be a teacher. and I get to be a part-time father, but I don't lead with that at school. I just know what to do because you've done a nice job with me. Went out, taught for a number of years, and then he went to Stanford and maxed that school too. So I thought, "Oh, this is putting a little pep in my step. I think the whole world needs to hear about it."
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, yeah, he was born out of wedlock. And in the 80s, I was shunned for that. We all, I mean, if any of us didn't marry the woman, we were in big trouble as guys, if you will. And so today, I mean, he called me this morning. He's teaching this summer down in Menlo Park someplace, and he called me up, and almost every day we talk. So I found a better world for myself. So I've created a better world for them. And I think the greatest gift that we can leave them a lot of money, our kids, but when we leave them their voices, they can speak for themselves. And there's some real security in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great story. Thanks for that. So
Thank
you mentioned confidence as one of the benefits, one of the byproducts of finding your voice. What are some of the other things that you consider as important? Some of the reasons that someone might want to find their voice.
Well, I think in the process of preparing speeches, I started using a dictionary. I learned how to write. And in the process of that, you create a whole package, the whole person. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of us didn't get in school because we were afraid to raise our hand. We were afraid to get up to speak. And we were kind of given the message that we weren't really good enough. So the benefits of public speaking is more than just getting up and giving a good speech and having presentation skills, but we're exuding more confidence. We're exuding charisma, if you will. And we bring people in because we know how to talk to people, with them and at them at the same time. And that's a real skill that I know that I possess, but I don't even have to think about it or talk about it because I know that we become more sensitive to the words that we use when we communicate through our speeches. And the words we use can either bring people in or push people away. And most of us don't even think about that. We know we're irritated somebody, but we don't know how impactful it is. I think it's also very good for our mental health and physical health.
In regards to next steps, someone says, you know what, now that I think about this is something that is really so important. What would you suggest are some of the ways that someone could go about finding their voice?
For me, and I think it really holds true for all of us, and I know that we live in a very competitive capitalistic society. We touched on this the other day. It's all about who's got the stuff, who's got the car, who's got the second, third, and fourth home, who flies here, who flies there, who eats here, eats there. But it's about building ourselves from the inside out, not trying to tell people how really good we are with all the trappings. And when somebody's building themselves from the inside out, but it takes somebody to recognize they need to find the skills and the talent to become a good public speaker, a good presenter. And when they do that, it's amazing what happens, but somebody has to take another person by the hand without a red pencil. That's the reason why we started the Speakers Alliance. We don't have any manuals. We do have guidelines and guardrails. Okay, you're the president, you're this, you're that. This is what we do here. And we have a format to our meeting, but we don't use the words constructive criticism. I mean, it's simply criticism.
Right. And in your case, a lot of it I would call destructive criticism. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But we do have what we call feedback.
Right.
And there's a community in there, and these people are 16 to 87 years old, and they come in here and they always say to me and to other people, man, this is a great community. And they feel they're in a safe harbor. We're not taking out a red pencil and saying, you had 10 ahs, 10 ums, and you read your notes too much, and you do this too much, blah, blah, blah. We just help one another, and we encourage people.
Right.
And our customer or potential people are people who recognize in themselves that they need to find their voices. And in companies, what happened, I had a guy sitting next to me at a business meeting yesterday, this guy, Daryl Gren, said, I have a hard time with this, but I know how important it is for me as the leader of my company. If I find my voice, others will find theirs because they'll like what they're feeling and seeing from me. And also it's going to drive revenue because we're going to be more likable. I go, well, that's a nice formula. Now, can we put all that to metrics? I'm not quite sure. Carmen Gallo, I've mentioned him, of Talk Like Ted, Storyteller's Secret, The Bezos Blueprint, another book just out 2 years ago, was one of my favorites. It's all about Jeff Bezos. We know who he is. He says the fundamental skills are writing skills and speaking skills. And there's no PowerPoints at Amazon. You need to get up and present what you think we ought to do, and you better feel it, and no notes. And it's amazing. He's talking about it, and I don't know that he's doing what we're doing right now, but he knows how valuable it is, and is Warren Buffett. If you want to enhance your value 50%, become a really good public speaker. It's on the internet. And he doesn't buy a company where the CEO cannot public speak. And he's got one diploma on his walls. This is all over the internet. Dale Carnegie speaking seminars.
Right. Right. So you mentioned those books. On your own journey, what other resources did you find to be most helpful in finding your voice? I'm sure books help, but were there other things that you found very valuable in getting everything together?
I was getting excited about what I was experiencing and finding my voice, and I still do. And let's say we just met here at a business meeting or some social event. I'll say, hey, by the way, I'm giving a talk on Tuesday, the 25th. Have you ever been to one of these kind of meetings where people get up and talk? And no, would you like to come? And I just share it with them, and they come in and go, half the people say, well, I want to join. Half the people say, well, I'll be back later. And most of them do. But they get so excited about their own personal growth and development, but it also opens a lot of people's eyes to what they've been missing. And they're wondering why I'm running around like a kid, like a Bart Simpson. Because I'm having fun. I'm a kid.
Right. So next topic I wanted to cover, and one that, people try to avoid as much as possible, speech preparation. Any tips that you could give for somebody who is putting a speech together, might make it easier or improve it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's telling stories that have a message of overcoming. So the speech I'm giving this coming Tuesday, I shared part of it about the roll of stamps, ask for what you want. Then I say to this guy, I've never said to somebody, well, I'm going to do this for you. What are you going to do for me? I mean, that sounds kind of blunt. But, we're in a business transaction. I spent the last 40 years building out my Microsoft Outlook Rolodex. So, I mean, who do you want to talk to in the Pacific Northwest? I can get you connected to almost anybody. And if I don't know them, I know somebody who does. That's really helpful to people. But telling a story of overcoming. J.D. Vance wrote the Hillbilly Elegy, and he's 40 years of age. He told his story. It brings people in, and he did an incredible job of overcoming the adversity under which he grew up. And I think he was raised by his grandmother. But I write out my speeches, and so that I get the speeches well written, and I know if I speak, like most people, 120 to 140 words a minute, that's about a 1,500 word speech, and I know that's going to take me 10 or 12 minutes. So I start getting a feel for it, and then I go to lunch with people like we all do from time to time, or to breakfast. I take pieces of my speech and I practice them on my friends that I'm going to dine with. And I don't tell them this is part of my speech. I just make it conversational tone. And that's how I get a lot of practice in is the speech I'm going to give Tuesday. I think I've told the story 20 times, so I'm ready.
That's a great idea. I never thought of that.
And I've told people, in feedback when they've given a speech where I've been, selected as the evaluator for the day. And I'll say, Jackie, that's a great speech, but take me to lunch and you can just practice with me over lunch, giving me your story. And I said, you'll be ready. It won't be your first time out. But I'm not concerned anymore about getting up. It's just that I want to do a really good job. So I know I need to do the basics. And if the speech is tomorrow morning, I'm not getting ready on Monday.
Right. Practice
Yeah.
makes perfect.
But if it's an impromptu speech, I'll be ready. But if I know it's one that I've been on the schedule for 2 or 3 months, I start thinking about what can I share from a lesson that I've learned about overcoming something.
Yeah.
And I put about 350 to 400 of those speeches in the can.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Perfect. Anything you wanted to leave us with before we wrap up? Any more tips, tricks, words of wisdom?
If we could sensitize society to something that's a must-have skill, just to feel better about ourselves, even if we don't go out in our career and become public speakers or presenters, we just feel better about ourselves because there's always that occasion of a birthday, a bar mitzvah, a celebration of life. We all owe each other 2 minutes to get up and to thank somebody. And that's how the book came about, is in the absence of somebody not getting up to share. And I think we owe each other, because I don't want to live with regret that somebody passed away and go to their celebration of life. You've been to them, and we can't get anybody to get up there until somebody finally says, well, I'll go.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. But I think it needs to be one of the 4 R's. There's 3 now: reading, writing, arithmetic. You've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need rhetoric on there, rhetoric and communication. And I think that the more we share stories with one another, the stronger fabric we can build and overcome some of the issues that we have today.
Great words. Great words. Viewers, you can find the link to Terry's book down below in the description box. Terry, thanks so much for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rob. I enjoyed it.